I mean, it's a good question. It's something we spend a lot of time on in playtesting. Like how much stuff is there to do out here, and how fun is it? That tends to be more of a function of if the non-linear part is boring, then there's something wrong with the stuff that we have out there in the first place. Whether that was the only thing you've done so far or the 30th thing you've done, it should still be fun. We do want to balance that. I think we've got a really strong main quest, main story for you to follow that is compelling and interesting and reveals a lot of interesting locations and characters and so forth. But at the same time, the whole idea is it's a big sandbox. Like, go do whatever you want, and the goal is to have that be as fun as possible. If you spend 50 hours exploring the wasteland and never doing the main quest, that should still be a fun 50 hours. The reason for that is it is really easy to do press tours with the 360. Just have these little hard drives and you pop them on a machine and you're done. Like, try and do a press tour with PCs and it's a...
Well, I was thinking PS3s.
Those aren't easy either. They're big machines. So having to put stuff on a disk, like just having hard drives that you can pop off, that's actually it is our lead platform, by the way. The 360 is our lead platform. Always has been for this project. You got to pick one. But it just so happens that it's also incredibly easy from a logistics standpoint to take removable hard drives. And, well, I mean, for us, Oblivion was multi-platform. The 360 had been out longer than the PS3 had, so we had more experience on it. And whenever you're picking a lead platform, it's usually a good idea to pick one that is fixed versus one that is not. So the PC is not fixed. When we talk about having a par level of performance across all three platforms, it is nigh impossible to define exactly what that means for a PC consumer, because I don't know what video card you have, what sound card you have, how much RAM you have, what OS you're running. And so when saying, well, the PC is going to be the lead platform, like, well, what does that mean in terms of how much RAM that we have to fit into for memory for this, that, or the other? Whereas on the 360, it's very well defined. And by doing it for the 360 as a lead, it ends up making a really good PC version, because we're able to use those constraints to make it run really well. And then on the PC, if you've got a really robust one, you can scale some things up and get some better performance. But it's much more difficult to go the other way, as we saw with Morrowind, which started off as a PC project and then added the Xbox part of the way through, and then like, oh, we don't have this much memory, we only have this much memory, and holy crap, how do we reduce that by 400%? So it's much easier to go the other way and add than it is to go this way and subtract. I mean, it works very different on the PC. It's much more of a tactile, like, click on what you want. You go into VATS and you click on the body part. It's very much a PC experience, as opposed to the sort of flipping through stuff on the, you just click on whatever it is you want to use and it changes. No, it's actually, it's been pretty much the same. I mean, obviously, for the purposes of this, it's about a half an hour for most folks, so there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do in a half hour. But we have had folks come in, like, for cover stories and stuff, where it was a wide mix of PC, 360, PS3. And the kinds of stuff they do is all different, but it's not like, oh, the 360 guys are just running around and shooting like it's Halo, but the PC guys are all doing dialogue. Like, it does. Gamers, we find gamers are generally gamers, and most of the guys that we have seen play have all done about the same, which is they've done a mix. They do some of this, they do some of this, they talk to folks, they get some quests, they do some random exploring, they use some real time, they use some VATS, like, they just do a bit of everything. Yeah, I mean, that really fell to Emo Pagliarulo, who's our lead designer, and his team, in terms of coming up with quests and dialogue and options for the player that were in keeping with the bar that Fallout has set, and the kind of tone and experience that the player expects when they play a Fallout game. There is a lot of it. There's a substantial amount more dialogue in Fallout 3 than there was in both of the previous Fallouts combined, because we wanted to try and provide the player with a lot of options and do things where you're talking to somebody and you may get a special option for a certain line of dialogue, a certain thing that you can say based on the kind of character you're playing, because your strength is high enough to be able to say the following, or you pick this perk and it allows you to say the following, or you've got a certain skill that you get to say the following, or you know, the speech challenge stuff that, you know, when you play, you see, you get chances to select options in dialogue that let you potentially unlock information or have quests play out differently. So, you know,
so it actually changes the quest. That if you've got the ability to say something different, you can actually open up new areas of the quest.
Yeah. I mean, you'll find that there's people you can talk to, and if you're a real jerk, you can, you know, you can sort of almost like completely pass by the quest. Somebody comes running up for you to help, and you're like, no, go away. You're on your own, kid. Like, he's like, okay, screw you. So, you know, whereas if you're nice, then, you know, it will play out very, very differently. So,
better?
What's that?
Or just differently? If you're missing out on quests, do you open up new quests by being bad?
Well, no. If somebody comes and asks you for help and you tell them to screw off, then you're making a choice to tell that kid.
Right.
Hopefully, you're not standing there and.
If you're consistently bad to people, do you get sucked into a different part of the game, a darker?
No, we don't. I mean, we obviously track that. So if you're doing bad stuff and you have bad karma, your karma score goes down, and it does affect a few things. But it's more important that on a case-by-case basis, that the response that you're getting is appropriate for your actions, as opposed to having some overarching thing where, oh, well, you're this level of evil, so now you get to go do all of this thing. Because if it's not obvious to the player that that's what they're leading up to, then it's just sort of arbitrarily deciding, I dub thee, you know, worthy of going to play the following. Like, I didn't know I was, you know, so you have to have it be such that the player understands that they're in control of something, as opposed to saying, you're this level of good, and now you get to go do these 10 quests. Like, oh, okay, well, I had, you know, as opposed to, if you do this, then this is going to happen. Oh, I get that. So, well, I mean, they're very different. I mean, they're very similar games, but they're very different games in terms of, you know, their tone, just the size. When you talk about, you know, Oblivion having hundreds of quests and Fallout not having anywhere near as many, when you talk about Oblivion having thousands of NPCs and Fallout not having nearly as many, it's just a different expectation to the player when you're talking about, you know, Oblivion was set in the capital province of an empire at the height of its rule. So, like, if it was sparse, you'd be like, this is a capital province? Like, where the hell are all the people? Whereas when you're in a post-nuclear wasteland 200 years after a war, and it's desolate, and there's not that many people around, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, look at the place. It's you know, it's a wasteland, so why would there be a lot of people? So when you do the scale like that, and you've got many fewer people, then you can do a lot more of the depth to the dialogue and give lots of options, so that when you're nice, it plays out like this, and when you're mean, it plays out like this, and give them special, unique options and dialogues. You're just not able to do that same level of depth to a character as when you've got, you know, 10 times as many. It's just not, that's not going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, I think we have been able to take advantage of that by providing more depth, more options, different ways to play out quests, as opposed to providing lots and lots of things to do, but, you know, there's one or maybe two different ways to finish a quest.